Hello, everyone. Tonight's probably going to be a quiet night, but we're going to try and do some very chill painting. We're going to be pinning up some Roose Bolton, and maybe if we have time, time and energy, some Bolton Blackguards, which are a troop unit for the game. Of course, in the Song of Ice and Fire tabletop game that's made by CMON, which it's just CMON. I think it's part of Asmodee now because I tried looking through the range. That's where I was finding them, was on the Asmodee web store. But anyways, so yeah, it's made by CMON, and currently they have 5 house armies, or 5 house armies, and then what they are calling a mercenary army. So you get your Targaryen, Baratheon, Lannister, Stark, and Greyjoys. And then those armies are broken down into banner houses that you would have seen in the book or units that you see in the book. So, for example, Stark, you get some Umber, some House Tully, House Mormont, which is a personal favorite house of mine. Uh, you know, then in contrast, the Lannisters are like a ton of Lannister house troops, not really a bunch of different banner houses, although they do have some stuff for Gregor Clegane the Mountain because, he's kind of his own thing, and so were his troops. And then, of course, the Greyjoys have, like, apparently almost all their units are some sort of banner house. And the Boltons get to be a little bit different because they're actually part of the mercenary army. The mercenary army is the only army that can be allied with another, although if that's the case, the other house has to be the primary army, and the mercenaries are just kind of like, secondary troops. Or they can be their own army. So, that's why they get their own lords and everything, like here with Roose Bolton. And this kind of symbolizes because they're units in the books that either have changing allegiances or no solid allegiance. So, if somehow you're spoiled by, something that is several years old at this point. Originally, House Bolton was a banner house of House Stark, so this meant, House Bolton had their own standing army, and they had their own lands and peasants to take care of, but in turn, this was by the privilege that, if House Stark ever needed anything, they would come to House Stark's aid, and supposedly vice versa. But in the hierarchy, House Stark was over House Bolton. But during the War of the Five Kings, there was an event known as the Red Wedding, which is where Robb Stark would marry the wife of his choice, which in turn meant breaking off a political marriage that would have been to a daughter of House Frey. And House Frey would host the wedding, and House Lannister would be able to tempt both House Frey and House Bolton into their service because they would promise House Bolton that they would become the head house in the north, with Roose Bolton becoming the warden of the north. And Walder Frey, because there's a D, not a T, Walder Frey would become the warden of the Riverlands, I believe is where House Frey is. Basically, he'd take over the duties that originally belonged to House Tully, which is the house of Catelyn Stark, who was Robb Stark's mother. So that's why House Bolton gets that luxurious standing of being in the mercenary army alongside other units like the Mummers, Stormcrows, and Golden Company, all of whom are actually mercenaries within the books. There are some other characters that are part of the neutral faction. Like, for example, Bronn of the Blackwater. I don't know if he has a Lannister unit yet, but in the books, he ends up becoming a close friend of Tyrion Lannister, and that's because, originally he served as a sellsword, actually in the service of Catelyn Stark when she took Tyrion prisoner for the suspected attempt on her son's life. I say suspected because everyone thought it was Tyrion, but, really it wasn't. And Bronn was one of those, and he ended up defending Tyrion Lannister in a trial by combat, which is like a quick way to get out of the Westerosi legal system by instead saying, I want to fight my accuser, and if I win, I go free, because it's all in the eyes of the gods, and clearly this was how they were determining my innocence. And if I lose, then I die. The trial itself, I think, is mostly fought to the death, if I remember right. But the person who is both the accuser and the defendant, they don't have to actually fight in the trial. They can just have, champions fight for them. And of course, in this case, Bronn was Tyrion's champion, and I forget his name, Knight of the Vale, which is where it's happening, ended up being the person who was the champion for his accusers. Long story short there, Bronn won. And this is how, their friendship started, because Tyrion just, hey, you keep working for me and I'll keep paying you. And eventually the payment turned into knighthood and a whole bunch of other things, and Bronn got off pretty good. Ended up becoming Bronn of the Blackwater for his part in the famous Battle of Blackwater Bay. And he would get the sigil of a chain covered in green flames across a black background, and this would be because the way the Lannisters won the Battle of Blackwater Bay was by using dragonfire, which was napalm. And Bronn was the person who fired the arrow that lit the napalm and destroyed Stannis Baratheon's fleet. Oh boy, it's kind of hard to get in there. Alright. Well, that should be the blue done for now. Go over that with a wash eventually, and then some highlights. Just realized I don't think I have... Do I have black here still? Ba, 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 ba. This should be able to work. Alright, so let's see. Now, the way I'm painting this up was in the show, the house colors were blue with a red flayed man, although I think most of the artwork now depicts the blue as black. But in the books, the colors were actually a pink background with a red flame man, and that's why in this picture here, which is supposed to be his artwork from the game, he is wearing red, or a red tabard. So what we're going to try and do is, you know, paint the cloak blue to, you know, so it's nice and dark but a very different color. And we're going to paint the tabard here as best as we can red. You know, going to try and keep the armor a dark iron color and then go with steel for the swords. We're going to try and paint the leather a bit on the brown side. I think we're going to go for the leather belt because it is very small and very hard to see. Now it looks like it should be the sword handle, or the dagger handle, dagger hilt, sword handle, and the belts. And I have misplaced my brown, it looks like. Oh, here it is. Mornfang brown. It's going to be a bit on the bright side for a brown, but we'll darken that all in the wash. There we go. Yes, we want to get to a fine point with not a lot of excess because of how small this all is going to be. There we go. All right, now for the belt. I need a little bit more. Go. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but the belt looks like thin loops of leather almost. Might just paint everything in the space brown and then let the wash do the shading. Or I might just be happy with it as is. Because it's kind of hard to see. There's a lot of detail, but it's very small. Like, this is a small layer brush. Look how big it is compared to what I'm using it on. I got some brown on the cloak. Go back over that. Maybe we can save it. Yes. All right. Okay. So that is that. His hair is actually black, so not going to try and paint it brown. How do I want to paint his boots? I think I'll paint his... No, his boots look like plate almost, so I think I'm going to leave those to be steel. Alright. And here we go. Now, what we're going to try and do here is paint up his tabard. Now, this part back here is actually going to be black, and then this part is going to be red. I don't think I'm going to attempt those little white lines you see that they use to try and distinguish it in the art to make a clear transition between one fabric and the other. I am just not that skilled for it, unfortunately. Oh, and there's my neck. Alright, there we go. Got just a little bit black right there on the tip of our brush. And let's see. To paint the gambeson, need to be careful and delicate. And we're already running out of paint. Wow, Abaddon Black, you have failed me. Just like one of your Black Crusades. Ha 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 ha. There's a Warhammer reference. There we go. Alright. Now to attempt to get up into here without going back over the belt. There's like a little fur back here that was part of the cape. Let's go ahead and do that. And we need to get a little bit more paints. I can already feel my eyes straining at this tiny level of detail. See, painting these is entirely optional because the minis actually come color-coded to, you know, their army's scheme. So the Starks kind of come this, it's actually kind of a light ghostly green and white. Then there's the Night Watch and Black folks, which are Night Watch and Free Folk. I'm gonna hurt myself over that one. Night Watch and the Free Folk. They have armies. I'm not too sure what color their minis come in. The Lannisters come in this bright, eye-searing red. Targaryens kind of come in a dark red. The Greyjoys are a gray. This unit, because he's part of the neutral mercenary faction, is actually like a dark copper brown. Kind of see it there from where I didn't spray paint over it, you know. Because, you know, it's supposed to be the color of coin. I actually mostly have a Targaryen army, and then I got some of the... When this was coming out in 2020 and 2021, they're still making models, but I haven't kept up with it in a bit. But I mostly got the Targaryen starter set, and then the Targaryen heroes. You know, then I got some Bolton and Mormont stuff because I like those houses too. They're just not the main armies I want. Here I got Roose Bolton and Bolton Blackguards. I got the Bolton's cavalry unit somewhere. I need to find the box. And then I got Mormont She-Bears and, you know, all the stuff that's Mormont. Well, they came out with a box recently. I haven't gotten that, but, you know, money's a bit tight at the moment. Because they didn't have it at the time, I got a Umber Berserkers, I think, that I was going to use as a Mormont unit. And then they came out with the Mormont She Bears, and it's like, haha. So I either need to sell that off, or I guess I have a box of Umber Berserkers. Not exactly against the Umbers, just, you know. Eh. There we go. Oh, I forgot to paint his hair black. Oh well. Alright. I'm going to try and save his head for last if I can manage it. I think what I should do is... use the shade I was going to use for the blue on the armor, so it has that consistent hue to it. Oh boy, I cannot see this piece for anything. Here it is. Oh, I'm pretty sure I just made painting that tabard a touch more difficult. Hoping you can see this better than I can, because I have poor eyesight when it comes to small details nowadays. Something diabetes does to you. Did I paint? I can't tell, so I'm just going to be doubly safe. And I have to get in here. Oh boy. Almost wish these didn't come pre-assembled, because or what's the term? Sub-assembly is almost necessary to accurately paint these. You know, where you paint the pieces before assembly. Usually it's a... I don't know if it's a professional move, but it's certainly difficult one, because some of the pieces can't really tell where the colors are going to go until they're already put together. So sometimes it's... I've never done it, but the idea of doing it is kind of a bit on the scary side, because of all things considered. Alright, that should be that. So now we gotta paint his boots. Right now I'm just painting them in Iron Hand Steel, which is a pretty bright metal, all things considered, but I don't really have anything darker in the steel silver variety. If I had the money, I would probably invest in a can of that Iron Warrior steel, because it's pleasantly darkened. Figure non-oil on the sword, and then Drakenhof Nightshade on the armor should provide a decent wash and contrast. still need to paint the back of these. Oop, sorry. There we go. Coming out nice and shiny there. Let's just go ahead and get the brush a little bit wetter. Oh, I drank through that water fast. Okay, so now we want to paint this, which we're definitely going to come back over after we wash it, so it's shinier. I feel like his collar is actually supposed to be cloth, not metal, but c'est la vie. Got mostly plate armor, but then he's got this little gorget of chainmail. He has at least a cloth tabard and a gambeson top of his cloak, and it looks like plate mail boots. Or at least the boots look like they should be plate mail because they have ridges and whatnot. It's actually pretty well dressed. Let's see. I have to be very careful when painting that tabard. I paint it red and then try and wash it in voluptuous pink, so it looks all nice and bloody. Sorry, my neck is a bit on the stiff side, so I have to keep turning around and stretching it. Get in here and get his armpit, his gloves, or gauntlets, I believe is the proper vernacular. I actually paint that, or yeah, well, I painted a little bit. There we go. That was a satisfying pop. Now I can see where I'm painting. bit more. We can finish that shoulder. Move on to the tabard. The inside here of his hands, arms. Make sure we got here underneath. All right. That is I dare say that looks like it's coming out pretty decently. Decently enough that I kind of want to take a picture of it. So let's see. Let's go ahead and try out that testing picture. There we go. Finish spreading that out. Alright, there we go. Finishing that up, and we can move on to this tabard, which we're going to initially paint in actually, yeah. Wait, do I have corn red on me? I'm sorry, give me a few seconds while I look for the corn red. I think I got it. Unfortunately, I can't find the cornbread, so we're going to have to, you know, make do. What I say about improvisation and necessity. Alright. No? Come on. Open up. There we go. I'm going to shake it and open it again. Actually, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with some Screamer Pink. Nice and dark. Then we can attempt to highlight with the red. Gotta be so careful. And I already screwed up. Whew. Sorry, my hand just started. Gotta really be careful not to come back to his arms. Oops, sorry. All right. It's kind of it for reach up there, do a little spot check on the last of that gray. There we go. There we go. Now to very carefully work around this dagger. Ah, crap. I have to go back over those. All right, there we go. Sorry if I just suddenly went quiet. I'm just trying to really Focus. Like I said earlier, these models came pre-assembled. They're not the largest things, but boy did they try to cram a lot of detail into them that needs to be painted. Trying to reach it all is like, I don't know if you can see that. It's not a lot of gap between the sword and them, and I'm getting paint all over the backside of the sword. Not really comfortable with it. This is the smallest brush I have, and it's pretty sure a scalpel would have a hard time fitting between the sword and the mini. Just need you to work into the folds of this tabard. Alright, now to get this bottom part. I keep seeing more and more gray pop up, and it's hidden by these folds. Maybe if I get my brush a little wet. I'll thin this down a little bit more. Maybe it'll, ooh, it's might have been too much, but there we go. Now it's going where I want it to. All right. Let's go back over that belt, and then we'll try and redo the back of the sword. And we'll move on to our washes. All right. And there we go. There we go. You're going where I need you to. That's good. And finish fill in all this very excess and minute detail. Alright, we're going to have to repaint that part of the dagger, go back over the back of the sword. So we'll give that a little bit of time to dry so the metal paint sticks. And in the meantime, we will go over Roose Bolton's hair, which looks like it should be very, very dark black. Looks a little like Mads Mikkelsen in that picture. very carefully. Reason we don't want to color his face is because it's easier to go to paint down into darker colors than it is to paint up into lighter colors. So when we go to paint his skin, if we get too much all over his face, it's going to be fighting it. There we go. Alright, give that time to dry. By now, that mess we made all over the sword and dagger should be dry enough for us to go back over it with another touch-up of iron and steel. Trying to get my brush into a point so it has smaller surface area and doesn't go places I don't want it to. Alright, now we need to touch up here. Back of the handle here. Then just being careful not to get it on the cloak. Let's go back here. All right. Okay. All right. So for the face, I'm going to use something straight out of one of the Games Workshop books, which is going to layer inflated one flesh and then wash with Reikland Flesh Shade before going back over again with Reikland Flesh as a highlight. Wow, never actually used this before and it goes on very thin. I think it's okay if we get some in the hair. There's a little bit of neck and chin there. I'm not getting any paint into. It seems like it covered up a lot of the detail. Ow. Kind of looks like Braveheart. The half and half face there. All right. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to start with washing the cape, which is going to be Drakenhof Nightshade. Then the armor and leather is going to be Nuln Oil. Then I have some Flesh Terrors Red, which is actually a contrast paint to use for the tabard. And I might also use it on the gambeson as well to kind of try and tie things together. We're just gonna dip the brush into our Drakenhof Nightshade. And we're just going to cover the cloak in it. Get it all nice up in here. Get a little bit more, and then we'll do the inside. Oop. Don't want to do too much. There we go. All right. So there's that. Now for the Nuln Oil. For the hair, because he has some gray wisps, I actually want to try and do a rough dry brush of, I think I have Pallid Witch Flesh selected. Wonder if maybe wouldn't have benefited from doing Drakenhof Nightshade over the armor, because it looks like it's a bit darker. I also don't want to drown it. Let's get a little bit more, because I want this to be substantially darker than it currently is, because right now it's very shiny. I don't mean that in the Firefly, ooh, it's awesome shiny. I mean that in the it's very bright and reflective shiny. As you can see in the picture I'm using, it's not meant to be. Or at least the artwork they use, it isn't. wonder if maybe next time I shouldn't try black contrast. Alright. Try and dry up some. There we go. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and dry brush the hair. And we only want few wisps here. I guess he's going to look a bit like Jean Grey. Oops, sorry. There we go. We'll call that enough, even though it's probably too much. Sure, get rid of all that excess water. And for the cape, we're going to dry brush a little Calgar Blue. There we go. All right. Here we kind of want there we go. All right, so we're gonna wash the tabard still. Gonna go over the arms with another shade of Nuln Oil and maybe add a layer to the neck piece there we forgot. Then we also need to wash the face in Reikland Flush Shade. Go. There's still some we go. I'll be all right. All right, there's that. We'll use the flesh shade. After this, we still need to do a layer of flayed one flesh over the face. Some of this excess. Oh, that's right. No, I didn't want to do non-oil. I wanted to do Drakenhof. There we go. I'm gonna get a little bit more. Oh yeah. That's doing what I was hoping the non-oil would do. It's doing a beautiful, marvelous job of it. That's beautiful. There we go. So I got to do the eyes. Actually, I think we could call that model done there. Where did I put... Where did I put my white? Yeah. Hi, Terry. Thank you for joining us. Well, I guess we're going to reuse pallid witch flesh for the eyes. Not a standard by any means, but should be different enough from the flayed one that it works out. Just gonna do a little dollop there because we need two very tiny. That is too much. I don't know. I think it's too much, but I'm kind of worried about trying to go back and do it. Might do some flesh shade back under the eyes to try and darken it. But Yeah. Maybe if we can get this down to a very, very, very... Nope. Very fine point. Oh no. Okay. That was our first and last attempt on eyeballs. Because what I'm about to do next is very bad, which is now it looks like he has no eyes. No. Alright. I'll let that dry. Go back over Breckham Flesh Shade. Make it look like his eyes are covered in shadows, hopefully, maybe, possibly. Oh, I hate myself for that. Going back to where we were started on that one. All right. Let's try. Let's try it very carefully. Still wet there, of course. This is almost too small to even try, and oh well. Yelling at myself about it isn't going to do anything. All right. Well, let me see. I think that is where we are going to call that for tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining me. I know I wasn't as energetic as I used to be. Today was, oh wow, I really love how beautiful that came out. Look at that. Let me, hold on, I got some Stormhost Silver. Okay, no, I don't have Stormhost Silver. That has gone very bad. Let me try brushing a little. Yeah. There we go. That came out beautiful. Perfect. That makes up for the eyes. All right. So that is going to be where we call it a night. And we are going to go raid Stowe. And have a good night, everyone.